And then you look at the scare stories about millions of jobs disappearing, but actually remarkably few have. Forrester Research came out with this much hyped forecast, and they said 1.2 million jobs are going to disappear in the EU because of offshoring between 2005 and 2015. God, 1.2 million jobs, it sounds huge. It's actually only 2% of service sector jobs in the EU. McKinsey said, well, no, it's going to be 160 million jobs around the world that are at risk because of the offshoring. That really is a lot. That's 11% of service sector jobs. But then you look at the actual numbers. You see, in 9 months between September 2008 and June 2009, there were only 15,000 jobs lost because of offshoring and delocalization in all of Europe. And then you have to look at those job losses in context. Not only they're a tiny share of total employment, they're dwarfed by the impact of new technologies. Computers, the internet, IT, they're continually replacing millions of jobs that used to be done by hand. Email displaces secretaries and postal workers. Expedia replaces travel agents. Internet banking does away with people who work in bank branches or in call centres. And yet, the Luddites who want to smash up computers are remarkably few and far between. And the result of all these wonderful new technologies is that new jobs have been created elsewhere. Highly skilled service jobs that rely on IT, and then service jobs at all levels that cannot be mechanised and that cannot be outsourced. Things like psychotherapists, personal trainers, childcare assistants, and so on. If you think about it, offshoring is just like new technologies. It replaces old jobs with cheaper and often better ways of doing things, and it makes space for productive new jobs. It also creates jobs in companies that export to India and other emerging economies which have got much richer thanks to globalization. And it creates new jobs here in advanced economies because of investment by foreign companies. You look at Indian companies, service companies like Wipro, like Infosys, like Tata Consultancy, they're all employing increasing numbers of people here in Europe as well as in America. And of course, most importantly, it safeguards lots of jobs here in Britain. Why? Because it makes companies more competitive and therefore better able to support the jobs back home. You look at studies of companies in Britain, in Ireland, in Sweden, and they show that companies that tend to offshore tend to be more productive. They tend to pay higher wages, and often they're foreign-owned too. And of course, it also allows consumers to enjoy lower cost and often better quality services, like Hilary was just describing. So overall then, offshoring benefits both advanced economies and emerging ones. McKinsey calculated that for every dollar that American companies invested in offshoring in India, the US benefited by at least 112 cents. And despite all those fears about offshoring, about the fact we can't compete, about all our jobs disappearing, the UK actually exports more IT services than it imports. And as Mark Kobayashi-Hillary new book complains, there's no reason to think that that can't continue. So we're at a critical time now in the world economy. It's struggling to find its feet after the financial collapse. And the last thing we need to do is allow protectionism to knock it back. Thank you.